Welcome to the Becoming Superhuman podcast, where we interview extraordinary people to bring you the skills and strategies to overcome the impossible. And now, here's your host, Jonathan Levy.
This episode is brought to you by the all-new and very exciting Superlearner Academy. Now, Superlearner Academy is the home of my premium level content and masterclasses from my course on accelerated learning, speed reading, and memory, all the way to my course on productivity. Now, in these masterclasses, I go into the gritty detail that I just can't go into on the podcast or in the books or in the other online courses. I offer the worksheets and the homework and the types of individualized attention that can only happen in my own platform where I control the learning experience. So if you want to learn faster, if you want to remember more, if you want to read faster, and you want to be able to do this all with a cohesive 10-week program that's going to take you from wherever you are today all the way to certifiable super learner status, I want you to check out the exclusive discount that we're offering for podcast listeners only at jle.vi/learn. That's jle.vi/learn. Hey, super friends, and welcome to this week's show. This week, we are excited to welcome a serial entrepreneur and high-performance coach to help us deconstruct the science of excellence. My guest's vision is to transform the lives of 100 million people, helping them have more time and freedom and passion. It sounds amazing to me, and it's something I can definitely relate to. He's co-authored 2 books on Amazon's bestsellers list, one of them with Steve Forbes. And he was the executive producer of an award-winning documentary about Singularity University's co-founder, Peter Diamandis. He also is an active contributor to Entrepreneur.com, Business Insider, and Forbes. Given how much time he spends working with and creating high-performance individuals, I was really excited to sit down and see what makes them tick. In this episode, we're going to talk about what differentiates those top performers from everyone else. We go into habits, behaviors, mindset shifts, dietary choices, routines. We even get some concrete tips and hacks for productivity and for motivation. We also explore the idea of taking on a coach as a method of achieving your best performance, which is something that I've never really had the opportunity or time to think about, but was really compelling when presented by this guest. And so without any further ado, I would like to present to you guys Mr. Josh Felber. Josh, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you doing today?
I am doing excellent, Jonathan. Thank you for having me on.
It is a pleasure. I'm really excited to hear about all the stuff you're working on.
No, definitely. I was on another call earlier today, and so I'm all fired up and ready for yours. So it got me all primed.
Cool. Well, whoever it was who got you all warmed up for us, we appreciate that. That's awesome. You know, Josh, I have to ask, by the way, you seem like a super busy guy. I did a lot of research before the interview, and I saw that you're not only publishing books and you're coaching, but I didn't realize you also have a supplement company. You're pretty active in the CrossFit community. You've done a documentary. You strike me as like the quintessential Renaissance man. So I'm wondering, what do you tell people when they ask you what you do at cocktail parties?
That's the always funny elevator pitch kind of thing I've been working on. It's like, man, what do I say? Well, I kind of just say I'm a serial entrepreneur. And I've owned 15 different companies since I was 14 years old. And whoa. I love helping people push to new levels of higher achievement, and have gotten a lot of business experience over the years and different methodologies and ways to try to push to new levels of excellence and higher achievement. So that's
a solid one. I love that, because I started my first company super young as well. Cool. None of them worked till I was 16, but you beat me out because you started at 14. But I'm wondering, how many of those, you said it was 16 different companies starting from 14?
Yeah, 15. There was a few smaller ones kind of when I was a little younger, but I mean, I don't really count it till 14. That's it's when I read Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich and Unlimited Power with Tony Robbins. And that just like got my mind primed. And
that is awesome. I give a lecture on failure and I always tell people, I'm like, yeah, I've had these successful companies, but I actually have like 10 failed companies. So how many of those 15 like got off the ground out of curiosity?
I would say most of them got off the ground, but there was, 3 that I sold, and the other ones either went for a while and kind of fizzled out or had some partner issues and things like that. And so we just ended up shutting them down and stuff. So
rock on. So 3 out of 15, you're batting double the average entrepreneur who gets 1 out of 10 right. I love that. Tell me about the 3 that you sold.
Sure. Back when merchant services were new to the electronic side of things, electronic credit card terminals just started going out there. And one of the very first companies I started was a merchant service company. And so we start putting in one of the first electronic terminals into businesses so they can take credit cards electronically and everything. And had a partner in Dallas when we started it, and we built it up to over 500 people working for us and 22,000 plus clients, and then ended up selling the portfolio off. So that one was kind of the first one that really got things going.
Awesome. There's a good chance I was probably one of your clients back in the day because I had a merchant account and all that stuff, and I changed around a couple of times. So,
yeah, it was the old Verifone light gray. I think they were Zon's terminals or something like that. So
rock on.
And then let's see, the other company was it was a nutrition company, and we created, it was like a weight loss mint. So it was kind of like one of those Altoid breath mints, but we had weight loss ingredients in it. And got it in all the 38,000 plus retailers we were in about 18 different countries. And it was fun. I ended up selling it to a company out of California called Irwin Naturals, who's got a bunch of supplements and different sorts of vitamins and things out there now still.
Awesome. And the third one?
And let's see. The third one was, I'm trying to think. Just like totally blanked out. That's what happens when your brain thinks like 3 or 4 steps ahead.
You're like, what's the next question he's going to ask?
That is just like, okay, cool, man. What else I got? There was something I was going to tell you from one of the initial questions. And the third company was in the Dish Network DirecTV space. So I had a satellite company, and I bought into my friend's business. And they were selling the Dish Network and DirecTV systems. And they were selling about, I think it was right around 100 systems a year at the time. And when I started with them, I brought kind of all that experience from the marketing and all that kind of stuff to them. And so the first like 30 to 45 days I was there with them, we had sold like 600 plus satellite systems.
Oh, wow.
And we turned around and were able to maintain doing that every month for about a little over a year. And then another local company came in and took over all the business and everything. So,
all right. So we've established your credentials as a high performance coach. So now we get it. We know what you're all about. I want to ask, what does your workday look like? I guess the question I'm trying to ask is, how the hell do you have time to do so much stuff?
I know. I asked myself that too. No, one of the things is I think helped me when I was 14 was reading that Tony Robbins book and Awaken the Giant and everything. And I picked up on his methodology or his techniques called chunking or blocking. And so I've utilized that in some way or another throughout my whole life. And that's the only way I could get things done now is through that. I mean, I have 3 kids, my boys are 5 and my daughter's 7. So, them and the multiple businesses, plus my wife owns one of the largest primal paleo skincare companies as well. So I'm helping her.
Cool. What's that called?
It's Primal Life Organics.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to check that out.
They ship all over the world and make, over 120 plus products. And it's all made right here and shipped from Akron, Ohio. So it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. I always love paleo stuff. Paleo, anything, you got my attention.
Cool, man. I mean, that's one of the things too, from a nutrition standpoint, we always try to eat and focus on from a paleo standpoint. Obviously it's funny when you start eating paleo, you like, okay, I'm going to eat. And you try to be like that 100% kind of person. But, with anything with nutrition or anything else, you're always going to have those days that you're not. So I'm like, all right, if I can just maintain like an 80 to 85% daily deal, and some days will be better and some days will not. And especially, my kids eat that same way as well. So, but every once in a while they like to get a treat here and there. So for me, it's, I'm like, okay, if I can maintain that 85%, boom, I'm golden and everything. So, and I think that's one of the biggest things is when we try to be perfect, no one's ever going to be perfect. And we have this image, especially a lot of times too, is growing up and everything. And as we get older, it's like, hey, I'm going to be that perfect CEO or that perfect entrepreneur, or I'm going to be the perfect athlete. And you're never going to have that level of perfection. It just does not happen. And what I like to talk to people about is, excellence and utilizing your mindset, breaking through your limiting beliefs to push to higher levels of excellence, which will then allow you to move yourself to higher levels of achievement. And I think if we focus on creating excellence in our lives and also creating excellence and value for others, that's actually going to move us further ahead and further along in what we're doing and what we're accomplishing.
I love that. I was actually going to ask you, the next question was going to be, I've never heard of a high performance coach. I like that term. And I wanted to ask what exactly high performance means to you specifically.
For sure. I mean, for me, high performance, it's that feeling of full engagement, joy, confidence that comes from, when you're consistently living from and into your full potential on a daily basis. And also it's not just for one day. It's got to be that continuous, day in and day out, over the course of 365 days, 730 days, that sort of thing. And so you're constantly in that state. And it's so many times, we think, oh, cool, I'm going to be a high performer. I'm going to try to do better. But it only lasts or sustains for a week or two. It's just like, people when they try to go on a diet or they go to the gym and right after January 1st and they make it for about 2 weeks and then it stops. And interesting thing was when I was growing up, my favorite football team at the time was the San Francisco 49ers. And
oh yeah,
Joe Montana and Jerry Rice and all those guys were there. And I happened to be talking to another gentleman who actually played against Jerry Rice as well as also played for the 49ers. And we were talking about excellence and achievement. And he was like, man, he goes, I used to be the first one on the field, but when I started playing for the 49ers, I was out there for my 2 hours. I get out there 2 hours early and I'm always the last one off, 2 hours after. And he goes, but when I got out there, darn it, he goes, Jerry Rice was already out there and he'd already caught like 100 passes.
Yeah.
And then, then same at the end of the day, he was always the last one off. But the main difference was when he went and every pass he went to catch, most of the wide receivers would go out and they would run at a 50% speed and focus and everything else. And, they would catch the ball, stop and run it back. Well, every time he would go out, he would run 110% speed. He would make his cut. He would catch the ball and he would take it all the way down to the touchdown zone every single time. And he asked him, he goes, hey, why do you do that? Why do you run those extra 80, 90, 60, 50 yards, whatever it may have been? And he goes, because every time that my hands touch the ball, I want them to know that I will score a touchdown.
Wow. Interesting.
Yes. And I think that's the difference between higher achievers and non-higher achievers is every time that their hand touches the ball, they score a touchdown.
I like that. I like that metaphor as well. So I guess the next logical question is, where do you think are either the low-hanging fruits or the biggest, most impactful things that make a high performer a high performer? I
mean, I think the biggest things that I try to tend to focus on, and especially with clients and everything too, the first thing is clarity, really, is understanding where you are now, obviously where you're going, and that clarity of how you're going to get there. And then getting that down, putting that down on paper, reviewing that on a daily basis, as well as writing that out on a daily basis as well. Because when we do that and understanding truly who we are and where we're going, and then continuously putting it down, that's going to start to create those changes for us. And I was just talking to a client the other day, and it's been a few years. And one of the big things he said was, hey, this was a few months ago. He's like, in 2016, I want to speak X number of times live on stage in front of this many people and everybody's going to love me and I'm going to be talking on this topic. So he kind of pretty much had full clarity on what he wanted. And this was a couple months ago. He put that all down and he's focused on that and focused on that. And he happened to talk to him the other day and he goes, hey, just to let you know, I have things that are booking up for 2016, but ever since we did that and I got that down and had that crystal focused laser clarity, he goes, I already have 4 or 5 speaking engagements booked for the end of this year.
Love it. It's like the whole visualization thing. Have you read those Ryan Ellis slides, Lessons from My 20s?
No, I don't think I've seen those.
So it's this guy who sold his company at age 23 for $170 million. And
nice.
On his 30th birthday, he wrote out these slides, 1,284 slides. And they deal with life, the world, and business, everything he's learned. Really, really cool slides. But
that's awesome.
One of the major, most impactful things he said is you need to write down your goals and your vision every year, right? Write down what you're going to accomplish this year, in 5 years, and in 10 years. And I got to tell you, I started doing that. I've always had goals, but I've never written them down. And since I started doing that, I'm checking things off like crazy. Speak at a TED event, done. Learn how to surf, done. Release a new course, done. So it's exactly like you said, you need to articulate these goals and make them actually real so that you're accountable to them.
Most definitely, Jonathan. And one of the big things too, to even kind of take that to the next level, those things that you really want to move the needle on and really start to accelerate quickly is take those and write that down with 1 or 2 sentences of why that's important to you.
Oh, yeah.
If you do that every morning or every evening or whatever works the best for you, it's going to create such more of a rapid transformation more quickly. It's pretty cool when people start doing that and they're like, wow, first you may be doing it in maybe 30 days, 31 days, 32 days. And then all of a sudden 75 days from now, you're like, oh my gosh, whatever I was just writing is coming up or it's happening.
I love that. That's solid stuff. What are some other quick wins or major impactful changes that people can make in their lives to become that high performer?
One of the other topics we really try to touch base on is productivity. And with the technology age, which is awesome, I think, and it allows you to communicate faster, but it allows you to connect with more people, allows you to get your message and create more value on a worldwide level than just a local level. And I think that's so cool. But what happens is as we are doing things, and I find myself, I tend to get in this, happens to me as well. And you just got to know those triggers to bring you back. But as they get distracted. So you go to do one thing of work and instead of just posting an image on your Facebook, now you're clicking and clicking and clicking and clicking. And it's 2 hours later and you're still on Facebook and you didn't get your image posted yet.
Yeah, exactly. We've all been there.
Right. So it's okay, how do we become more productive and actually do things that move the needle instead of just being busy? And so we take everybody through a couple steps and we create these reminders, and also is blocking or chunking the day that we touched base on a little earlier. So when I come in, I have a set time that I answer emails and that I do my social media stuff. And so it's a 45-minute time frame. So I need to get all of those items done in that time, which I easily can. But if I'm doing other stuff and becoming distracted, then I won't. And so it allows me to know, hey, boom, I get all this stuff done. It's done. And now I move on to my next thing to move whatever project I'm working on forward today.
Yeah, that was a massive one for me as well. The Parkinson's law idea that work is going to expand to fill whatever amount of time you allow it to. So if you say, I'm going to do my emails in 45 minutes, you get them done,
Right.
I mean, I did that literally now. I had our meeting time wrong. So your assistant told me, wait, it's in 40 more minutes. I was like, cool. I have 40 minutes. I'm going to get all the cooking done for the next 2 days. Run into the kitchen. You'd be amazed. I made some salmon, I made some eggplant, some zucchini. Only took me 40 minutes.
That's right.
I've got my cooking set.
That's cool.
Josh, are there any other quick win productivity hacks that you really use or that you advise your clients to use all the time?
I mean, one of the things that has worked really well for myself and my clients is when you first thing in the morning, instead of checking your email and checking your social media, so then you become reactive to everything the rest of the day, is get your morning stuff done. So whether you have a morning routine, whether you do meditation, whether you do yoga, whether you go work out, whatever it is, take that and get that done first. And they've actually shown, scientific studies have shown that you decrease your productivity for the rest of the day by 30% by checking your email or your social media stuff first thing in the morning.
Wow, I didn't know that there were actually studies, because every single morning, I know that everyone tells you don't be in this reactive state. When you wake up, have your first hour set up, don't touch your phone, first 90 minutes of your day. Every morning I sit there and I'm like, it's so warm in bed, but I don't want to be unproductive. So I'll just check my emails. It's better than just laying in bed and doing nothing. And every day I make that fight, but now I have that number, that 30%, to say, wow, do I want the rest of my day to be 30% less effective?
For sure. And, the funny thing is, since you mentioned kind of getting up and out of bed and everything, is I just read an article the other day, and it's from this Navy SEAL commander. And he was talking about unfair advantage. What's your unfair advantage? And so his unfair advantage is being disciplined. And so for him, being disciplined is every morning, he's now out of the Navy SEALs, but every morning he would always wake up, obviously at like 4:30, whatever in there. But his time was 4:30. And so his commander had said, hey, you need to have 3 alarm clocks, a digital, your phone, and a wind up. So then you have no excuses to get out of bed. Your only 2 options are, do I stay in bed and take the lazy way out, or do I get up and do I have that unfair advantage to be ahead of all my competition and everyone else?
Wow.
So it's a good thing to think about in the morning. Where do I want to be? Do I want to stay here and lay in the warm bed? Because I have that. I get those same thoughts.
Yeah.
Or 2, do I want to get up and have that unfair advantage? Because I know by getting up now, I'm ahead of all these people. And this is going to give me the opportunity to get to my destination faster.
That is true. I have to admit, when I moved to Israel, I realized that I'm now 9 hours behind everyone else, or many hours ahead if you look at it that way. I mean, I am ahead technically, but I'm always behind on email because of the time difference.
Yeah.
So what does your morning routine look like?
It's something that I try to, working with high achievers, is figure out what works best for them. So what works best for me may not work well for everyone else. But the cool thing is I have my kids and they're involved in it as well. So when we get up, or when they get up too, is I'll make sure they go through. And what we try to focus on, 1 is making sure you're rehydrated. 2, that you get moving some way. So whether it's a short little mini workout routine, whether it's stretching, whether it's some kind of yoga, whatever works best for you. Some people go for a run. I'll get up and I'll do just some things to get moving, because my normal optimal workout time is later in the day. And so I'll do some stuff with them. We'll do burpees and push-ups and sit-ups and squats and different things like that to really get the blood and the whole body moving. And then from there, they'll do some kind of breathing exercises to supercharge the system, as well as then meditation after that. And for myself, I'm not like a long 20, 30, 40 hour meditator, but so I teach them, hey, look, focus. And I want you to really focus and bring yourself into the present and most clarity. And we're only going to do that for 3 to 5 minutes. And if you can create that optimal time, that's just you and yourself, clearing your mind and being super present in that state, maybe that 5 minutes is all you need. And so after that, then it's getting them and myself included, is some kind of super greens drink. So we have some kind of super greens drink in the morning to get the system charged up, and then breakfast and everything else. So for me, that's kind of what my whole morning is. And then that way I can eat breakfast with them, take them to school and everything else. And then when I get back, then I have my day blocked out and with everything else I need to do. But my workout comes later in the day, usually midday. I'll get some kind of either run in or go do CrossFit. So one of the 2.
Rock on. As you were speaking, I was like counting all the things you and I have in common, from the starting the business in the early teens, the CrossFit, the paleo, the meditation. So it's really, really cool. And I just want to point out to our audience that so many of the top performers that we interview, like yourself, have all this stuff in common. Their diet's in check. They're on a low carb diet. They're doing high intensity exercise. They're meditating. They're tinkering around with entrepreneurship. So I think that's super cool.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, and it's cool that, like you were saying, is that those people have those certain traits, because as you see, it's what works, or there's certain things that are in common. And like I said, they don't have to be identical every single thing, but moving yourself to that point to where you do have some kind of routine in the morning, from where not having one will make a huge difference. You're just taking out, when I talk to people on nutrition, just eliminating sugar, from your diet for 30 days will make a huge impact on your life, health, fitness, clarity, And so it's taking those things that other people just feel is the normal, and why not just do it? And that's the difference, is we get so used to being in that state of normalness, whereas that we think that we're moving ourselves to higher achievement because we went out and ran something today, but then skipped the rest of the week.
Right.
Where if we utilize our mindset and pushing past what our limiting beliefs of what we think is higher achievement or higher excellence, just like when Roger Bannister busted through the 4-minute mile, then all of a sudden there was hundreds of people shortly after that.
Yep.
That did that. It's because that limiting belief was now shattered. And it's the same thing as we all tend to put limiters on what we think we can do, what we think we can accomplish. And so by having a coach, whether it's in sports, whether it's even Eric Schmidt, that was the CEO of Google and stuff, he had a coach to help him. All the top people in the world have some kind of high performance coach to help them push through, to help them reset those barriers, reset those limiting beliefs so they don't have those, or they're up at a higher scale, so they can then break through that 4-minute mile to move themselves forward towards higher excellence and higher achievement.
Okay, that's cool. So I want to unpack that a little bit, because that's kind of a new idea to me. I didn't know that a lot of these high performers were having coaches. I always thought that the great adage behind every great man or woman is a great husband or wife. And, I think a lot of times loved ones form that kind of coaching role. But what elements of this person's performance are left up besides that breaking down the boundaries? Where does a coach come in, and where do we know if we need one?
I would say, if you're anything that you're doing in life that you want to help yourself move forward and be successful with, whether it's raising your kids the best way, or whether it's starting a business, whether it's you're in fitness and you want to be in the Olympics, even like the presidents have advisors, or the different heads of the states and countries and things. And so everybody has some kind of advisor or coaches and that play a role to see what you don't see, or see what your spouse doesn't see, and then help you find that and then move past that, or move yourself forward beyond that. And if we don't have that, we're always in that same state where we're thinking, hey, that 5-minute mile is the fastest.
Right.
Whereas our coach is going to say, no, Jonathan, even though it hasn't happened yet, that 4-minute mile can happen.
Right.
And so they're there to help you move past and help you get more energy, get more clarity, productivity, influence, and courage in your life. And just even myself, I work with a high performance business coach. And so you may run over something 10, 20, 30, 50 times, but then when you actually sit down and you're talking through it with them, or you're, learning some different strategies and things to move yourself forward, you're like, oh, wow, I knew that, but I didn't actually see or know that. And then that's that breakthrough barrier that you need, or that breakthrough moment that pushes you through that belief to that next level of higher performance.
Right. Well, it sounds a lot like a mentorship relationship, but maybe a little bit more structured, or kind of you have a little bit more accountability with that person, just because it's kind of a client and not so much a mentor-mentee, but more of a client and customer relationship where the stakes are a little bit higher. Would that be accurate?
From a high performance standpoint, we have an intake questionnaire, and a lot of people might answer 99999 for, I got the best energy, I have the best clarity, almost the best clarity and all that. Or some people may answer 10. One of the interesting things is, but when you ask and say, hey, that's cool, I see that you answered a 10. What are your top 3 areas in your life that you feel you have clarity? Okay, boom, 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 boom. All right, awesome. Now, why is number 3 not number 1? And so there's always room for improvement. And it's just like the people that go to be Olympic athletes. There's 1 to 2 millimeters of difference that make the guy that didn't get the Olympic athlete position to the person that did. And a lot of it ends up being their coach.
Right. Yeah, that's really interesting to think about. I mean, I suppose there's no professional athlete in the world who doesn't have a coach. There's no such thing. I mean, even if they're in an individual sport, and yet, so many people try to go about their entrepreneurial journey without having a coach. And I think they end up looking at mentors or investors or family members to serve that role that the coach serves, when maybe, in fact, folks like myself do need a business coach.
For me, my wife is awesome and, everything else, but it's like there's certain things that their role is, their influence is, and everything else. And they can be a great, hey, yeah, you can do this, but maybe haven't been through those certain things that you're looking for, that coach can push you to, or that coach can lead you to. As a high performance coach, we're not like, hey, yeah, go do this. It's more Q&A. So it's getting them to understand and know what their full potential is, what they can achieve, and then helping them figure out those answers on how they can do it.
Awesome. I wanted to ask you earlier, and I didn't get a chance, how much of high performance do you think is nature, and how much do you think is this nurture, this coaching, having the right mindset, having the right people around you to get that high performance?
No, that's definitely a great question. And I think, as we all learn and grow, I think obviously if we were, say you're running a sprint, and obviously if you have a lot of slower twitch muscles, your sprint is not going to be as fast as the guy with the faster twitch muscles.
Fair point.
But even though I may train, and I can be really good, but that might be my 1 to 2 millimeters of difference why the other guy's faster than me, if he's training at the same level as I am. Now, obviously, if he wasn't, then that may be my advantages, my training and my continued mindset and everything, to help me push me and get me there. But more than likely not. So when it comes to your own personal achievement and your own growth, majority of the limiting factors are what we put on ourselves. And the majority of limiting factors are what we tell ourselves are true or not true. And the majority of limiting factors are the people that we end up surrounding ourselves with, that we listen to, that we shouldn't be listening to.
Right.
So a lot of it is our environment that can be changed. And by then moving yourself out of that environment to connecting with people where you want to go to, people that are going to help influence and guide you towards that path of where you want to go to. Mm-hmm. It's just like if you take a look at Will Smith, used to be homeless. He's one of the top actors now. Or even like Damon John from FUBU, he's on the Shark Tank and all that stuff now. I mean, a lot of these people came from, they had nothing. You would have probably nobody would have thought, oh, that guy's right there. He's going to be successful. He's going to be the next multimillionaire and be on a TV show and everything else. But he got around the right people. And a lot of those right people led him and helped him with his mindset. And a lot of it too was his mom. So that was, a good thing for him. But it's that mindset and where those people are and where they're moving. And if you're around those people and you're learning from them, it's going to help inspire you and help you break through those barriers that are in your own head.
Yeah, that's a massive point right there. And it's actually also one of the things that Ryan Ellis talks about at length in these slides that I like so much. He says, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So you should spend a lot of time choosing those 5 people. And he even goes into like, if you're not in an intellectual hub, it's worth moving to one. It's worth uprooting your entire life to be somewhere where the people inspire you and they're intelligent and they're driven and they're dedicated. I think that's such a huge point, because if you change your surroundings, you change your life.
Definitely, for sure. I would agree 100%. I mean, for me, I get out of where I am just so I can connect. There's a lot of high level people that I connect with for that reason, is to be in those other areas, or, whether it's on different Skype calls, but usually at least once a month, I'm somewhere that I'm connecting with our group of different people that, are always moving towards that next level of performance, success, achievement, lifestyle. So
yeah, I mean, that's clutch. And, for anyone in the audience listening, there are some really, really amazing groups that you can join. If you're an entrepreneur, you can join the Entrepreneurs Organization, EO.org. You can go to Summit Series events. You can go to, I think it's called, Kairos Society. If you're a young entrepreneur and you can get into these groups of young, energetic people who are really excited, or not young, you can also join YPO, old dudes with big businesses, but getting around those people and spending time with those people who think like you or think the way that you want to be thinking is such a worthwhile investment.
For sure, definitely. And that might make the difference of, where you're going and how long it's going to take you to get there.
Agreed. I owe so much of my success to being in the right place, whether it was EO or at Berkeley or at INSEAD or just being around smart people. And I owe so much of my success to them. In fact, that's such a huge take home kind of applicable, go out and do this exercise right now, that I wanted to ask you, Josh, what are some other practical homework steps? I really love to give homework for people to do in the 7 days between podcasts. So besides sitting down and thinking, hey, who am I spending my time with? What are some actionable homework assignments that we can give our audience today?
Definitely. Well, one thing we can use to kind of, hey, who I want to spend my time with part is, let's create our Dream 100 list of those people that we want to connect with at some level, whether it's, hey, I want to meet them, whether I want to hang around them, whatever it may be. And if we start putting those down, it's going to start leading us down that path of, where we're going to run into them at. And what's interesting is a client that I've worked with, his thing is he's like, hey, I wanted to be in like Forbes and be listed, article and be written up in Success Magazine. And so he made these list of top 10 magazines. And when I talked to him about a month ago, he had, and this is from over the last 18, 24 months, he has been in, I think it was 7 out of the 10 at that point. And yeah, so I think just getting that down. So, hey, that's cool. We're thinking about the people that we want to start to trust, but let's make that Dream 100 list of the people that we want to connect with, or that we want to help, or that we'd love to have influence us more as well.
Right.
Another thing would be clarity is really becoming clear and understanding where you are today, where you're going, and then what that vehicle is that used to get there. And maybe we're not clear on that vehicle, or maybe we're like, man, okay, here's where I want to go and here's where I want to end up. And that part that we're still trying to figure out is how we're going to do it. But by knowing the beginning and the end, and then kind of reverse engineering how we want to live our life, what do we want to, who we want to have around us, what kind of experiences and things that we want to have, then by reverse engineering that, how much money you want to bring in every month, that sort of thing, then that'll help us start to think, hey, okay, how can I do that? And then you'll start having those ideas of what's going to get you there.
Right. Awesome. So the takeaway that I took was write down not just I think you called it your Dream 100 list, but also some concrete goals and some clarity as to why you want to accomplish those goals. Do you recommend in the next year, in the next 5 years, 10 years?
I mean, obviously, I would look to do, like what you want to look at over your next year, as well as the next 3. I like to have everybody kind of create more of what's called a map, is where you want to be and where you want to go over the next 1 to 5 years. Because what happens if we create this whole, 10-year goals and that sort of thing, but it's like, okay, how are we going to get there? And whereas if we kind of create kind of that map, that direction that we're going to follow, but that's also going to allow us to take those detours, make those changes, as well as, add new things, new stopping points along the way.
I love it.
And so I think that's the best thing to do.
So the map means essentially sketching out the steps between you and your goal, not just writing, I want to be a New York Times bestselling author, but all right, first I want to write a manuscript. Then right. Okay, cool. I like that actually a lot, because I've got some goals that I'm looking at on my board right now. Like, I have no idea how I'm going to get to a wife and 3 kids by then. Like, what are the steps piece by piece? Feel like I got to meet a nice girl first. Like, break this down, do this in order properly,
Yeah. Well, the funny thing you said is when I read the books of Tony Robbins when I was 14, one of his big things is these different categories. You put down all your goals, what you want, but then also kind of write in detail, about each of those. And so it might have been houses. It might have been from a monetary standpoint, the type of person you want to be in, relationship, kids. And the funny thing is I wrote all those stuff down. It was probably, 20 something legal size notebook pages. And then probably like 10 years after that, I happened to find it and pull it out. And it was cool, interesting to see, is go back and see all these different things like, oh, wow, I accomplished this and this. Well, then one of the things was later on, was the type of relationship and kids and things like that I wanted to be in. And even though I wrote that stuff down when I was 14, I was able to find that when I was in my 30s. It was kind of a cool thing to see come about from that.
It reminds me of that book, The Secret. I didn't actually read the book. I saw the movie, which I found to be kind of a really corny adaptation, personally speaking, of some really actually powerful stuff, the law of attraction. But there's the story of this guy who, years and years ago sketched out his dream house. And then 20 years later, or something like that, he finished building his house and he was moving boxes and going through old boxes from the attic from one house to the other. He opens the box and realizes that the house he had built, his dream house, was this thing that he dreamed up 20 years ago, which I think is just kind of really interesting.
Yeah, no, it's awesome to see how that manifests and how that, helps move you forward and everything as well. So
yeah, it's all about accountability. So I wanted to ask Josh, I know we're coming up on time here. What is the most impactful $100 that you've spent recently?
Let's see. Most impactful $100. Most of the stuff is always over 100, but
all right. What's the most impactful? I'll give you an exception. Most impactful $500 you've spent recently.
I would say anything that you can use to invest back in yourself, and whether that's books, whether that's in events, different things like that. And I think when we're doing things, we get so caught up in doing it and trying to figure it out and everything else, is you have to invest back in yourself. And whether it's $100, whether it's $50, $20, $5,000, whatever that number is for you, investing it back in yourself in some way that's going to help you move yourself forward, to help you push the needle in whatever you're doing, I think regardless of anything else you ever do, is probably the best investment ever.
So what are some good examples of investing back in yourself? I imagine books probably top the list.
I talk to so many people and they're like, they read every once in a while, or, it's like, look, you have to start taking a book. And I don't care if you read a book a day or a book a week, whatever that is for you, challenge yourself and do it. If you don't read any books now, pick a book and plan on reading one book every 2 weeks and make it happen and just do it, because you're going to create so much more knowledge, which will help you create so much more wealth, lifestyle changes, and better yourself than not. I mean, it's just like, you have two people and it's like, okay, cool. You can either go take your $100 and go out and meet your friends at the bar and spend it there, or you can take that and acquire something that's going to help you gain more knowledge, books, seminars, CDs, tapes, whatever it may be. And that is an investment that's going to continuously pay you back.
Totally. All right. You just sold me on it. The advertisement for this episode is going to be one of my online courses, which cool. is shameless self-promotion. But I also want to say you also have written a book, if I'm not mistaken. And so where can people learn more about what you're doing? Where can people find your stuff, get in touch with you, all that stuff?
Yeah, definitely, Jonathan. Yeah, actually, I co-authored 2 books. So that was really cool. And then I have my book that I'm focused on working on right now called Making Bank. That's going to come out hopefully the end of 2016 is the goal for it. But the best place, my website, joshfelber, FELBER.com. And we're actually doing something I could extend to all your listeners and everything else, as well as starting, the 10th, next Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern time. I'm going to start doing 90-minute to about 2 hours range of live webinar trainings on the 5 secrets of high achievers, and giving people lots of actionable information to take and utilize and, get out and make things happen. We're actually starting on the 10th, next Tuesday, and then running those usually every week as well.
All right. And that's the 10th of November. So guys, by the time you've heard this, those webinars will already be online. I assume you're going to keep doing them
every week. Yep.
Awesome. So by now, if everything goes well with the editorial calendar, by now you guys are already 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 episodes behind. So go check out those webinars on joshfelber.com, correct?
Yeah, they can go to joshfelber.com. There'll be a link there where they can register. And I think the other link is highachieversecrets.com.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So we will put all that stuff into the show notes so people can find it all in one place at becomingasuperhuman.com. Mr. Josh Felber, it has been such a pleasure chatting with someone who has so much in common and yet such a fresh perspective to share.
Thanks, Jonathan. I'm honored to be on the show and excited that we're able to really dig in deep and get some great, useful information for your listeners.
Absolutely. All right, Josh, well, take care and have a great day.
Thanks.
All right, super friends, that's it for this week's episode. We hope you really enjoyed it and learned a ton of applicable stuff that can help you go out there and overcome the impossible. If so, please do us a favor and leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher or however you found this podcast. In addition to that, we are always looking for great guest posts on the blog or awesome guests right here on the podcast. So if you know somebody or you are somebody or you have thought of somebody who would be a great fit for the show or for our blog, please reach out to us either on Twitter or by email. Our email is info@becomingasuperhuman.com. Thanks so much.
Thanks for tuning in to the Becoming Superhuman podcast. For more great skills and strategies, or for links to any of the resources mentioned in this episode, visit www.becomingasuperhuman.com/podcast. We'll see you next time.